If you are still dreaming of an H-1B visa or a U.S. student visa, I need you to stop scrolling for the next 12 minutes, because what I'm about to show you could change your entire timeline. A federal judge just struck down Trump's $100,000 H-1B fee. And then, 4 days later, the same judge turned around and put it back in effect. That's not a typo. That actually happened. And while everyone was celebrating the win, almost nobody noticed that a completely different rule, one that nobody is talking about, already went into effect in February and is quietly rejecting thousands of applicants before the lottery even happens. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's real, what's paused, what's coming next, and why so many applicants are sitting directly in the blast radius of all of it. This is general information, not legal advice. Let's get into it. About a month ago, a U.S. court rejected an earlier attempt to burden H-1B visas with the same $100,000 fee that President Donald Trump had announced. Even so, that decision left plenty of room for other rule changes. The administration has been preparing additional ideas to make visas harder to obtain, and some of them could be released in the coming weeks. Several federal departments are now reviewing options, with both H-1B visas and student visas under close review. Here is a clear look at the proposals. To start with the H-1B program, the visa still has an annual limit of 85,000 approvals, and those spots are filled through a lottery system. There are exceptions, though. Some universities and research institutions do not need to enter the lottery, and the Trump administration wants to close that gap. Another approach is to make H-1B visas expensive enough that employers think twice before filing. The $100,000 fee was one example of that strategy. Officials believe companies rely on foreign workers mainly because they are cheaper, although that is not always true. In many cases, employers are looking for highly specialized skills that are difficult to find locally. Still, the current government argues that higher costs will lead to fewer foreign hires. Although the $100,000 fee was struck down, officials are still exploring other charges. Those could include one-time costs, such as the biometric entry-exit fee and the annual search charge, both of which would add expenses for employers. A third idea builds on the same logic. It would raise the minimum wage for foreign specialists by somewhere between 21 and 33%. The aim, once again, is to make hiring foreign talent less attractive for companies. There are real concerns with that approach, and the biggest one is how little evidence has been shown for it. The assumption is that H-1B workers are underpaid and therefore undercut local talent, but that claim has not been backed by data. The U.S. government has not released studies proving the case. Instead, the argument appears to rest on assumptions, which is not a strong foundation for labor policy. The administration is also increasing scrutiny on H-1B misuse. The Labor Department says it will open an inquiry into companies accused of taking advantage of the system. The stated goal is to sharply reduce H-1B approvals using every tool available to the government. And that focus does not stop with work visas. Now here's where I want to slow down because this is the part most videos are getting wrong or oversimplifying, and you need the actual timeline to understand where things stand today, in July 2026. On September 19, 2025, President Trump signs Presidential Proclamation 10,973, imposing that $100,000 supplemental fee on new H-1B petitions filed for workers who are outside the United States and need consular processing. In December 2025, 20 state attorneys general, led by California, sue the administration, arguing the fee is illegal and is damaging their ability to staff public schools, universities, and hospitals. On June 8, 2026, U.S. District Judge Leo Sorokin in Boston rules in the state's favor. His reasoning is actually really important. He says the $100,000 charge functions as a tax, and under the Constitution, only Congress, not the President, has the power to impose a tax like that. He also finds the administration violated the Administrative Procedure Act by rolling this out through internal memos instead of proper rulemaking. The fee is vacated. Employers can suddenly file without paying it. On June 11, 2026, the Trump administration files an appeal to the First Circuit Court of Appeals. On June 12, 2026, here's the twist. The same judge who just struck the fee down grants the government's request for a temporary administrative stay, meaning his own ruling gets paused while the appeal plays out. As of that date, the $100,000 fee is back in effect for qualifying petitions. On June 18, 2026, the government formally files its motion with the First Circuit to keep the fee alive during the full appeal process. So where does that leave us right now? The fee is technically unlawful in one court's eyes, but it is still being collected. And to make this messier, a completely separate lawsuit filed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C. actually went the other way. A different judge in that case upheld the fee. So you now have one circuit saying it's illegal, another circuit saying it's fine, and multiple other lawsuits still pending in San Francisco and elsewhere. When federal courts disagree like this, it usually ends up at the Supreme Court, and legal experts are already saying that's likely here too. The practical takeaway: if you or your employer are filing an H-1B petition right now that requires consular processing, meaning you're outside the U.S. and need a visa stamped at an embassy, budget for the fee. Don't assume it's gone just because one court called it illegal. While everyone was distracted by the $100,000 fee drama, DHS quietly finalized a completely different rule back in December 2025, and it took effect on February 27, 2026, which means it already applied to this year's H-1B lottery for fiscal year 2027. For decades, H-1B selection was a pure random lottery. Everyone who registered had roughly the same odds, whether you were a fresh graduate or a senior engineer. That's gone now. DHS replaced it with a weighted selection system based on wage level. Here's how it works. Every registration gets assigned a wage level from 1 to 4, based on Department of Labor salary data for that job and location. A Level 4 registration, the highest paid roles, gets entered into the lottery pool 4 times. Level 3 gets 3 entries. Level 2 gets 2 entries. Level 1, the entry-level roles that most new graduates and early career applicants fall into, gets just 1 entry. DHS itself has projected what this actually does to your odds. At Level 1, the projected selection rate is only around 15%. At Level 2, it jumps to about 31%. Level 3 climbs to nearly 46%. And Level 4, the senior highest paid roles, sits at over 61%. Think about what that means in practice. A fresh graduate on OPT, applying for an entry-level tech role, is now competing in a lottery stacked against them before the draw even happens, regardless of how many times their employer registers them. This disproportionately affects exactly the group most likely to be filing H-1B petitions for the first time: international students transitioning off OPT. Students are also likely to see additional hurdles. The government wants to target optional practical training, or OPT, programs. Until now, the United States has allowed students to gain work experience through OPT, and students in STEM fields have been able to extend that period by 2 extra years. Under the new approach, the administration may require a separate visa extension process for anyone who wants that training. That could discourage training stints and may also affect the overall quality of education. And this isn't just talk. DHS confirmed in an internal letter that it's actively reevaluating the entire scope and duration of OPT, including the STEM extension, citing concerns about worker displacement, fraud, and national security. There's already a formal rulemaking entry sitting on the federal government's agenda for this. Because OPT exists through regulation rather than an act of Congress, DHS doesn't need lawmakers to change it. They can rewrite the rules through the standard rulemaking process alone, which means this could move faster than people expect. Right now, STEM OPT gives students up to 36 months of work authorization total, 12 months of standard OPT, plus a 24-month STEM extension. And that window is exactly what gives students multiple attempts at the H-1B lottery before their work authorization runs out. If DHS shortens or restructures that window, it doesn't just delay people's plans. It can shrink the number of lottery attempts a student gets before they're forced to leave the country. Combine that with the new wage-weighted lottery we just talked about, and you can see how these two changes stack on top of each other for anyone still early in their career. For the administration, fewer training pathways also means fewer foreign nationals staying in the country. Put the pieces together. The fee, the weighted lottery, and the OPT review are three separate changes all landing on the same pool of applicants at roughly the same time. And early career professionals and recent graduates are the ones most exposed to all three at once. So if you're still planning to study or work in the US, here's the honest picture. The $100,000 fee is legally contested but currently active. The random lottery you may have heard about no longer exists in the way it used to. And OPT, the bridge millions of students rely on, is under active review, with a formal rule possibly coming soon. It may be worth rethinking your timeline, checking the latest rules before you file anything, and speaking with a qualified immigration professional before making a decision based on what you saw in a headline last month. Rules here are shifting month to month, sometimes week to week, so don't rely on old information, including, honestly, some of what you'll find in older videos on this exact topic. If this breakdown helped you actually understand where things stand right now, hit like. Drop a comment with your own situation or questions, and subscribe, because I'll be tracking every update on this as it happens.